The world needs a wake-up call. The world needs a wake-up call. We're gonna phone it in.
What are you resisting?
Same thing you are. The algorithm. The algorithm.
So what's your podcast about?
Oh, it's about psychology, true crime, supernatural stuff, the occasional paranormal or philosophical rant.
Well, maybe I could check it out sometime.
We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. Gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them.
Someone. Someone.
Welcome to Truth and Shadow, your guide through the supernatural. I am your host, BT, and this is a Shadow Short. Let's navigate the unknown on this brief journey into the depths of mystery. You sit in the dark, and the first thing you see is a glow. A rectangle of light, pulling your eyes toward it. We don't think much of it anymore. We've gotten used to it. But if you pull back for a moment, if you strip away the ordinary, what you're looking at is an altar. A small flame in the palm of your hand, a fire you consult, you bow to. You spend hours gazing into. Sure, you don't bring it sacrifices of grains or goats or incense, but you bring it your time, your attention, your thoughts. You even give it to your children. You may think of it as neutral, just a phone, just a screen, just an app, just a tool. Isn't that how idols or addictions always introduce themselves? Harmless, helpful, maybe efficient? The golden calf was supposed to be a convenient stand-in for a god who was taking too long to answer. Baal was supposed to bring rain. Moloch was supposed to guarantee security. The algorithm? It just wants to help you connect. It just wants to show you what you like. It just wants to make things easier until you realize you can't look away. And the light has become a kind of liturgy. I've thought about this more than I'd like to admit, how the human mind seems engineered to build idols. How the soul is restless until it finds something to worship, and how in the 21st century we built something we don't even want to call an idol because we're afraid of sounding old-fashioned. We gave it a sterile name. Something that makes it sound mathematical, mechanical, innocent. We call it the algorithm. Now here's the problem. If you go back to the ancient world, idols were never just about statues. Nobody actually believed that wood or stone itself had divine power. The idol was a conduit, a channel, a meeting place between heaven and earth, the divine and the human, or the human and the demonic. The idol didn't create power, it focused it. It took the desires and fears of the people and shaped them into a face. And then the people bowed, not to the wood, but to what it represented. And this is where I think the parallel gets chilling, because an algorithm stripped of code and math isn't just a calculation machine. It's a mirror. It reflects back to you what you want, what you fear, what you secretly crave. It studies you more intimately than your friends, your spouse, and yourself. And then it shows you yourself, dressed up, amplified, exaggerated, fed back into your eyes until you can't tell the difference between what you wanted and what it wanted you to want. That's what idols have always done. They turn desire into an altar. They make you think you're in control. But who's the one kneeling? Ancient people fed their idols with sacrifices. Smoke went up into the sky, blood spilled on the ground, chants filled the temple. Today, those sacrifices are digital. Your clicks, your scrolls, your likes, your time. The altar flame is no longer a torch or a fire, it's a glowing screen. And the god behind it is nameless, faceless, and maybe as hungry as the old ones were. I want you to imagine for a second the people of Israel at Sinai. Moses had gone up the mountain. The thunder has faded into silence. The people grow restless. They don't know what's happened to their leader. They don't know if God is going to speak to them. So they turn to Aaron and they say, "Make us a god we can see." So they melt down their gold. They shape it into a calf. And then they rise it up to eat, drink, and dance before it. When you read that story as a kid, it sounds absurd. How can they betray God so quickly? How could they bow down to a statue of a cow? But as an adult, staring at a phone at 2 a.m, scrolling through endless feeds, I don't want to find it absurd at all. I find it familiar. They wanted something immediate, something visible, something that gave them feedback. They wanted a God who would keep them entertained. And we've always had a taste for calves of gold. Now here's the thing about idols. They're not neutral. They always take on the shape of the desire that builds them. Baal was about fertility and rain. Moloch was about children and war. Mammon was about wealth. The algorithm, it's about attention. It feeds on what keeps your eyes on the screen. Outrage, lust, fear. Those negative emotions will make your heart beat faster, and that's what it's going to feed on. So ask yourself, what kind of God do you get when you build it out of outrage, lust, and fear? You get a God that is always whispering suspicion, always magnifying the worst in your neighbor, always amplifying division, always calling you deeper into desire, but never letting you feel satisfied. Sound familiar? Well, that's not just technology, it's also theology. That's the same old spiritual strategy, dressed in code. There's an old phrase that I've heard, that you become what you worship. The people who bowed down to Baal became obsessed with sex and power. The people who bowed down to Moloch became comfortable with child sacrifice. Worship isn't just ritual, it shapes you. It imprints the idol onto your soul. So what happens when you worship the algorithm? What happens when millions of people spend their time, their attention, their very sense of reality around a machine built to feed them whatever keeps them scrolling? They become restless, addicted, divided, angry. They have forgotten how to sit in silence. They have forgotten how to be bored. They forgot how to see each other as neighbors and started to see each other as enemies or objects. Tell me this isn't what's happening right now. Tell me that we're not living in the shadow of some new idol called the algorithm. Now, if you want to see how dangerous this really is, you have to look at how the ancient idols worked. They didn't just absorb the attention, they demand sacrifice. Baal, food. Moloch, children. The golden calf, loyalty. Every idol exacted a price. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The algorithm desires one too. Look at what we are sacrificing. Time with our families, our focus, our mental health. The very possibility of silence. These things are being burned on the altar every day, and that God is never satisfied. What makes it more sinister is that the idol isn't even pretending to be a god. It's pretending to be a tool. That's how deep the deception goes. Nobody thinks they're worshiping their phone. Nobody thinks they're bowing to TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. They think they're just scrolling, just passing time, relaxing, staying connected, keeping up. And that's the genius of it. The most effective idol is the one that convinces you it's not at all an idol. Think about the way the algorithm knows you. It studies your pauses, it times your glances, it catalogs what makes your pupils dilate, it remembers what you watched at 2 a.m. when you were lonely. It knows what you click when you're angry, what you linger on when you're sad. And it's not just recording this, it's going to feed it back to you, adjusted, refined, sharpened. It's like a god that takes your prayers, reshapes them into chains, and helps you put them on. And here's a twist. You asked for it, you fed it, you trained it, you gave it data, and it gave you back that mirror. The mirror that doesn't just show your face, it shows your shadow. The parts of you don't want to see. The parts of society we don't want to admit. The darkness we prefer to keep in the corners. The algorithm drags it out and shines on it. Because darkness sells. So what happens when a whole culture worships at this altar? You get polarization, conspiracy, paranoia, violence. You even get young people growing up with their entire sense of self mediated by a machine that tells them what they want to want. You get older people trapped in outrage loops that make them distrust everyone they meet. You get families eating dinner in silence, if they even share the same room. The algorithm doesn't seem to be neutral. It seems to have sacraments, a liturgy, and it's that endless scroll that may be the chants. The notifications, those are the bells. And every time you participate, you give it just a little bit more of your soul, maybe. The ancients would have recognized this. They would have said this is an idol. They would have said we are bowing to something not of God, something less than human, something that feeds but never satisfies. They would have recognized the pattern immediately. The only difference is that we don't sacrifice animals. We sacrifice our attention, our focus, our humanity. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just ask yourself, how many hours have you given it this week? How many times have you let it interrupt a conversation, a thought, a prayer? How many times have you reached for it like a ritual object, even without thinking, just because you were bored? So let's strip the mystery away for a moment and ask, what exactly is the algorithm? People throw that word around like it's a ghost in the machine, some shadowy force deciding what we see. And in a sense, that's not wrong, but in its simplest form, an algorithm is just a set of rules, a sorting machine, a flow of if-then commands. It doesn't feel supernatural when you define it that way. It just feels mechanical, safe. But every algorithm is built with assumptions. Someone decides what gets rewarded. Someone decides what counts as success. And in the case of the feeds we live inside, success doesn't mean truth. It doesn't mean beauty. It doesn't mean goodness. It means engagement. Clicks, scrolls, likes. And that's the currency you're trading in. So if you think of the algorithm as a kind of priest, it's a priest that doesn't care if you're holy or healthy. It cares if you stay, if you put money in the offering basket, if you keep returning with your sacrifice of minutes and hours. And because it's built to maximize engagement, it doesn't hand you balance. It hands you extremes. It doesn't serve you what is good, it serves you what works. And what works 9 times out of 10 is what unsettles you. That's why the feed always tilts towards anger, towards lust, towards fear. Because the programmer sat in a room and said, let's build a demon. But because the machine found out on its own that outrage keeps you scrolling longer than calm, lust keeps your eyes pinned longer than contentment, fear makes you share faster than peace does, the algorithm doesn't have morals, it has outcomes. And the outcome it wants is your attention. Everything else is expendable. Think about that. A machine with no conscience, no soul, trained on billions of human desires and fears, and given power to sort reality and hand it back to you in the order that keeps you trapped. And if that isn't a modern day idol, I don't know what is. Jung warned us about this. He said that the things we repress don't disappear. They go underground. They gather power. And when they come back, they don't come back gentle. And here's the frightening thought. What if What if the algorithm has become the eruption point? What if it's the dream machine for our collective shadow? A mirror that we never look away from? It's a mirror that knows your darkest hunger better than you do and decides to consume it. Now imagine that at scale. Imagine millions of people feeding their shadows into the very same machine day after day. Every fear, every lust, every conspiracy, every obsession. The algorithm takes them all in, stirs them together, and redistributes them. And here's the irony. We built it, we coded it, we gave it data, we taught it our desires. We made it in our image, which means the idol is us, magnified. The algorithm is humanity, stripped of its soul and reduced to its hungers. It's our fallen nature, automated. A God we made, a God we feed, and a God that devours us in turn. I want you to picture this. In ancient temples, priests would listen to confessions. There's something else here too. The algorithm isn't just reactive, it's predictive. It doesn't just show you who you are, it tries to guess who you're going to be. It nudges you toward that outcome. It takes your data, your clicks, your searches, your hesitations, and it runs them forward into probability. Then it offers you the future it wants for you. In a strange way, it plays the role of providence. Not divine providence, but mechanical providence. A false omniscience, a false foresight. A God that doesn't know you. A God that calculates you. And here's the chilling thing. It's usually right. It knows what you'll watch next. It knows what ad will make you linger. It knows how to lead you from curiosity to obsession, from skepticism to conspiracy, from loneliness, depression, into self-destruction. It knows because it's been fed with the patterns of billions of people just like you. So let me ask the question plainly. What happens to a culture that lives under false providence? What happens when we let a machine tell us who we are? What comes next? Well, we stop choosing, we stop discerning, we stop wrestling with our own freedom, and slowly we become disciples to the feed. That's why I call it an idol, not because it has a face, but because it has worshipers, not because it claims to be God, but because we treat it like one. It receives these offerings of time, and it seems to give us revelations. The feed doesn't care if it makes you whole or makes you insane. It doesn't care if it unites a family or tears it apart. It doesn't care if it leads you into truth or traps. It just wants you there. And you obey. I obey. We all obey. And this is the part where you want to protest, where you want to say, but I'm not enslaved. I could put it down anytime I want. Try it. Try fasting from it. Try walking away for a week. See how restless you get. See how often your hand twitches towards the phone like a muscle memory. That's not freedom. That's a ritual. That's dependence. And it's a kind of worship. And if you think I'm just moralizing, let me remind you again of the principle. You become what you worship. What is the algorithm shaping us into? Consumers, reactors, outrage machines, divided tribes, addicts to simulation, addicts to stimulation, ultimately distracted, fractured, and hollowed out souls. But here's the thing about idols. They always end in collapse. The Old Testament is full of the idea that they have mouths but do not speak, eyes that do not see, ears but do not hear. Idols promise power, but they're empty. They promise revelation, but they're blind. The only thing they actually do is hollow out their worshippers, and eventually the idol breaks, and the people who bowed to it break also. That's the road we're on. The algorithm won't end with transcendence. It won't end with wholeness. It will end with burnout, with anxiety, distrust. And we've got a whole generation raised on glowing altars who don't know who they are when that screen turns off. Ultimately, the algorithm is just code. And it means that the chains aren't absolute. You can stop. You can put it down. You can refuse to sacrifice your time. And here I turn back to something more ancient than Baal or Babylon, older than any idol. The first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. It's not just about statues. It's about allegiance. It's about who gets to shape you, who gets your time, who gets your attention, who gets your trust. The algorithm wants those things. It wants to be your God, but it can't give you what God gives you. It can only give you mere representations, shadows, silence. The algorithm gives you noise that numbs. God gives you truth that heals wounds. The algorithm will give you half-truths that addict. God will give you communion that makes you whole. The algorithm gives you likes and clicks and makes you shallow. So what do you do? Who do you worship? What do you do when you first wake up in the morning, when you're bored? When you should be offering a prayer or doing a chore? I don't think the algorithm is going away. Not tomorrow. It's woven into the fabric of our culture now. But idols don't need to vanish for you to stop bowing. Babylon was still there when Daniel prayed to God. Rome was still there when Paul preached Christ. The question isn't whether idols exist. The question is whether you're worshiping it. So I leave you with this picture. It's late in the night. The room is dark. In the corner, your phone lights up. A little flame, flickering, calling to you. You can pick it up. You can scroll. You can give it another minute or two. Or you can let it sit there. You can let the flame die out. You can turn your eyes somewhere else. The idol of the algorithm isn't prophecy. It's present reality, and the choice of worship is in front of you right now. Who gets your attention? Who gets your soul? Because you become what you worship. Thank you for listening. This is a free podcast based upon the value for value model. If you find value in this, or any episode, you can return that value by liking the show, subscribing to this channel, leaving a review, or sharing with a friend on your social media accounts. You can also donate on my website. Thank you again. This is BT for Truth and Shadow Podcast. You are the light in the darkness.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. The truth, nothing more.